Well, folks, we're blessed to have Kristine Wilcox with us. She asked us to call her Kris. Kris, welcome to Beat Diabetes.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it is a blessing. There are some stories that people tell, and they give enough details that it intrigues me, and it's like, I want to hear more. In fact, I think everybody needs to hear more. So, Kris, tell us a little about yourself. Where do you live? What kind of work do you do? And then we'll get into the diabetes.
Okay, I live about 30 miles outside of Seattle, Washington, and I have been staffing a hospital for the last 20 years or so.
All right, so you're not unfamiliar with medical practices and issues and things of that nature.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't deal directly with any kind of medical information or anything along that lines. I'm strictly we need this many nurses to take care of the patients today, and I need to either tell people they can stay home or tell people they need to come to work.
Okay, all right. Well, that sounds like a pretty important position. So let's get on to your own situation with diabetes. Like many that I have interviewed, you started, when you finally got diagnosed, you were up pretty high. Tell us how you first came to realize you had diabetes and any symptoms that you might have had.
So I had noticed the beginning of last year that I was kind of having some stomach pain, and it wasn't terrible, but it was persistent. And so I kind of ignored it for a few months, and I had started to lose a little bit of weight, so I was a little bit concerned about that. Wasn't sure if it was related or not. And so I finally got in to see my doctor around the end of July, and they did a full workup, labs and stuff, and that was when my blood sugar came back. My A1c came back at 9.9, which I think they figured my blood sugar was around 237 on average.
Okay, so you had a 9.9, which is quite high. Did you know it? And did your doctor tell you this is pretty serious stuff?
She didn't make it out to be maybe as serious as what I took it. Her first reaction when I went back in, this was, like I said, like the 26th of July. It was like a week later, right around August 1st that I went back in. And I had already seen my labs on my chart online, so I knew the A1c was up. I'd kind of gone over my labs to see what was going on. And so I was like, oh, that's not good. That was a really easy Google search to find out that it was much higher than it should have been. But when I went back in, she was like, well, I'd like to start you on metformin. And I was like, well, what about monitoring my blood sugars? And she was kind of dismissive. She was like, well, if you really want to get a meter, you can, but, I don't think it's necessary. And I was like, well, and then I inquired about a continuous glucose monitor because I had found that over my week of research. And she was like, well, your insurance will never pay for that because you have to be on insulin in order to get that. And I don't think you need to be on insulin at this point. And so when I pressured her a little bit about the glucose monitor, she was like, well, you can just order one off of Amazon. And so that's what I ended up doing, which amazingly, was there the same day. By that night, I had a glucose meter. And I also told her that I wanted to try just changing my diet and my lifestyle first before just taking drugs. And she told me that was fine, but that she'd never in 20 years of practice seen anybody bring their A1c down when it was that high back down to normal.
Yeah, that is one of the things that really intrigued me when I was reading your comments about your own experience. To have a doctor, and I don't think she was some country doctor that saw one patient every month. I'm sure she was a busy doctor, and yet she's never seen anybody, like 0 people, that ever brought their A1c down through natural means and dietary changes. When she told you that, did that depress you? Did you say, well, you're about to see one? Or what was your attitude when you heard that?
My attitude was kind of like, well, let's just see what happens. I like a little bit of a challenge, I guess. And so, and I was already pretty committed to, going low carb and trying to make a difference for sure. I have a daughter who's 12 and a husband, and, I'd like to be around for them for a long time. And I've read a lot of really poor outcomes for people with high blood sugar, and I didn't want to be one of those people.
So you mentioned that you thought about the idea of going low carb. Had you heard that somewhere else, or was that part of your initial research? What kind of moved you that direction?
Well, I'd heard about keto before. My husband and I have even tried it a couple of different times to lose some weight. I have a desk job, the winter times here in Western Washington are very wet and not super conducive to getting outside. In the summertime, we go out and we camp a lot. We're out in the woods, but we spend more time sitting around the campfire eating snacks than we do like hiking. And so we had researched some of those diets before and tried a few different things, but certainly not with any kind of dedication. And so with more research over the, week leading up to that appointment, I'd kind of come across that, carbohydrates are a problem if you're diabetic. And so that definitely prompted me to go that way. My doctor was actually not super positive about low carb when I mentioned cutting out carbohydrates. She was more concerned about me cutting out fat. She was like, well, I think you should go, low fat and eat a lot of fruits and vegetables. And that didn't really jive with the little bit of research that I had at that point.
Yeah, you mentioned that she recommended using the FDA food pyramid, which is pretty much an ancient relic that needs to be retired. You somehow knew that wasn't the way to go.
Yeah, it didn't take much time on YouTube to figure out that carbohydrates just break down into sugar in your system, and that I think eating natural carbohydrates, like let's just say a potato off the top of my head, because I did have a very good relationship with potatoes. I liked them very much, and I do miss them occasionally. But I still think that a natural potato is a big difference from eating a bag of chips. And so I feel that way. I still am not going to eat potatoes because they do have an effect on my blood glucose. But I don't think that natural carbs that God made are worse for you than potato chips.
So let's talk about your initial efforts then. You go home, determine you're going to see what you can do to get this fixed and what kind of changes you made. Judging from the kind of success you had in a short time, it looks like you jumped in with both feet. You just gave it your all. You mentioned you'd tried keto a couple times before, but hadn't gotten all that serious. It looks like you got pretty serious this time. Tell us about the changes you made and what gave you that kind of motivation to do it.
So I immediately cut out all processed foods, and I knew I had to keep it really simple. There's some amazing people that make some amazing keto and carnivore and low carb things out there, but I knew that I needed something that I could just eat on a regular basis and feel full, because I was really hungry, initially the sugar withdrawals and stuff. So I started out with ground beef with coleslaw mixed in, the coleslaw mix you get from the store that's just cabbage with a few little pieces of carrots. And I would cut up an onion and maybe some mushrooms and some bell peppers and kind of a deconstructed egg roll, I guess is how you would consider that. I'd throw in a little soy sauce, and I was just like, I can eat this every day. And I can eat it 3 times a day if I have to, and I'm just going to eat until I'm full.
You did not go hungry during this new dietary regime that you adopted. You weren't constantly starving.
Nope. I ate as much as I wanted to, as long as I kept my carbohydrates down, because initially all I was worried about was not being hungry and not spiking my blood sugar.
Well, I think that's awesome. And I've never heard it put quite that way, but I mean, that's exactly right. If you're going to be successful, number one, you don't want to spike your blood sugar. Number two, you don't want to go hungry, because if you do, you'll just end up cheating and breaking your diet.
Yeah.
So was there anything that told you were on the right path? Were you checking your glucose enough to watch it start going down? You mentioned you were typically over 200 milligrams per deciliter just throughout the day. Did it take long to start seeing better results and lower numbers?
So that was what my doctor told me. She gave me a chart. You can Google it and find like what a normal person's blood glucose is and what somebody who's pre-diabetic is and somebody who is diabetic. And I went so hardcore so fast that I never saw numbers above pre-diabetic numbers. So on average, initially, my numbers were probably around between 138 and 170. I never saw 200. I did get close a couple of times, but for the most part, I stayed in kind of that 138, and then occasionally, like especially in the morning, my numbers would be high. I guess that's dawn phenomenon is what research has led me to believe. And my numbers in the morning are higher. They're more in they probably run about 108 to 115. But I never saw the numbers. She told me I was going to see numbers over 200. And as soon as I cut out all the processed food and was only eating my little hamburger mix that I was eating, I never saw those numbers ever.
So this was almost an overnight change. I mean, you had been seeing those numbers before, apparently, but suddenly those numbers are gone, and it's not like it took a long time.
It didn't. No, it was pretty quick.
I would guess that you became pretty confident after a while of seeing those numbers going down and realizing, hey, I'm doing this.
Yeah, it felt really good. And then during this time, I was also trying to get a CGM. I really wanted to see what my numbers were doing in real time all the time, because I was getting tired of stabbing myself, just because I was insecure. I kind of wanted to know what they were all the time, and I didn't know enough to feel comfortable just trusting the things that I was eating, because I was still trying to figure out, well, can I eat bell peppers? Do bell peppers actually do something? And I tried talking to my doctor, asking for a prescription, telling her I was willing to pay out of pocket, but I didn't hear anything back from her. And so finally I contacted Dexcom. Dexcom actually had a program where they would reach out to my doctor and try to get a 2-week trial, where one sensor. So for Dexcom, that was 10 days. And didn't hear back. I finally got information from Dexcom that they hadn't heard anything back. And they actually provided a service where I could have a phone consultation with one of their doctors and be able to get one free sensor. And so I paid, I think it was $15, might have been $20, to have this phone consultation with this doctor. And they sent me in the mail one sensor for 10 days. And then probably, I'm going to say it wasn't even a week after I got that sensor, my doctor's office reached out, and I explained that I was trying to get a sensor, that they had finally sent me one. And then my doctor was willing to write me a prescription, since I said I was willing to pay out of pocket. And so that's what I do now. I pay for a CGM, and I don't wear it all the time. I do take breaks because I'm fairly confident with the food that I eat now. I have a range of things that I know I can eat. But it was definitely invaluable to start to see some of those trends and know that, well, it's not always my food that's spiking me. Stress can spike me. And so it's really interesting when you start seeing that information in real time all the time.
Yeah. How often would you say you checked and scanned yourself with the CGM? 5, 6 times a day, 10, 15?
When I first started, I probably scanned myself every 30 minutes. The Libre 2 is the one that I pay for. It's $70 a month, so it's 2 sensors. And that one you do have to scan, although there is an aftermarket app that you can get that does communicate Bluetooth, that will let you see in real time. It just shows on the front of my phone all the time what my number is. But I don't know. It says 9,000 scans in a 2-week period or something, but some of that's when it's doing it itself. So, but at least once an hour, probably. Not so much now. Now I don't monitor nearly as closely. Like I said, I'm pretty confident. It's only if I eat something new, or if I think I've eaten something that I need to keep an eye on.
So what were some of the revelations you got from wearing the CGM and scanning yourself so often in terms of specific foods, the aha moments where you said, oh, I never thought that? Give us some examples of what you learned.
A sugar-free coffee. I got a sugar-free mocha, and it sent my blood sugar up like 185, 190, and I thought for sure it would be fine because it was sugar-free. So I don't know what they used, or if maybe they accidentally gave me full sugar, like real chocolate. I don't know. But so that one, I just avoid I avoid public places with coffee and stuff like that. I try to avoid anything that I don't know what went in it. So I just make my own food and stay away from anything processed or anything that, somebody outside of my family has made, because I just don't know for sure what's really in it.
After 4 months, it's time for another A1c. As you go there, and this would have been, I think around Thanksgiving or so, as you go to get this A1c, were you pretty confident that you'd have good results? Where did you think you'd land on that next A1c?
I was really hoping for normal, but I didn't know for sure. The CGM is just kind of my best guess. I didn't know at that point it didn't really give me an average of what my A1c would be. It was just these daily numbers. And when I would plug them into a calculator, it said that I should be normal or close to normal. And so I was very hopeful that I would be normal or close to normal, at least have made a big difference.
And tell us what it turned out to be when you got that A1c.
It was 5.6, which is right at the top end of normal.
Yeah. So your doctor had told you earlier she had never seen anyone lower their A1c or their glucose levels by a dietary approach. You've just done it. You went from around 10 to the mid-5s. So, I mean, that's not just a slight reduction. That is a major decrease of your glucose levels. Did your doctor have anything to say? Did she say, well done? Was she excited, or what was her attitude?
Nope. She just treated it like normal. She actually, she was like, well, I don't think you need to monitor your blood sugars anymore. She's like, are you sure you want to keep getting, do you want to keep the prescription for the CGM? And I was like, absolutely. I want to keep my prescription for my CGM.
Well, she never wanted you to have a CGM in the first place, or even a glucose monitor of any kind.
Nope, she sure didn't. And, yeah, and I don't know. I was very surprised by that. I kind of expected something, a little bit of, yeah, good job, or wow, that's amazing, but nope, not a thing.
Now, you mentioned that you dropped, I think, around 25 pounds. And the thing that's, I think, really nice is that you did this on a new way of eating. I'm not going to call it a diet because it's really a lifestyle, but you did it with a new way of eating that you didn't go hungry at all. You ate until you were satiated. That's got to feel pretty good to know that you can still get full at your meals. You're not going around hungry, and yet your weight is going down, your A1c is going down, and I suspect you're feeling a lot better.
Yeah, I felt a huge difference within probably a week, 7 to 10 days. I felt a dramatic difference, and so many things. I kept a list for a while of all the different changes that I experienced, and some of them were ones that really surprised me that I would not have correlated with high blood sugar. So, like, I had dandruff, and it almost completely went away. I had calluses on my feet, and they went away. They were just, I didn't realize how sore and inflamed my body was until my body stopped being sore and inflamed. I didn't really think that I felt that old. I'm going to be 50 this year, and it seems like I was missing out on how good I could feel, because like now I roll out of bed and I just, get up and go downstairs and it's no big deal. But I remember, middle of summer last year, I was kind of like, it was kind of dragging to get out of bed. And the first couple of stairs would kind of hurt my ankles a little bit. And I don't have any of that now. It's gone, 100% gone.
That is so great. And I hear that all the time. Not those particular complications necessarily, but I mean, I just hear of all kinds of things that get resolved that you're not even thinking about. You're not planning to get those resolved. You're just concerned about getting your glucose down, and boom, all these things get fixed. And I think the key word is what you mentioned, inflammation. When you're living with high glucose, and eating a high carb, high sugar, high processed foods diet, your body's living in a constant state of inflammation. I suspect you never want to go back to the old ways of eating and living.
No, never. I just, whole food is sustainable. I really believe that, at this point, I actually eat probably more carnivore than keto. I primarily eat meat and eggs, but every now and then, if I want to grill up some onions, I have grilled onions on my burger. Or if I want to fry up some peppers and mushrooms, I have peppers and mushrooms. But 90% of the time at this point, I pretty much eat one meal a day. I'm just not hungry anymore. It was amazing once the sugar cravings went away, that I'm not hungry. So sometimes I'll eat in the afternoon. I try not to eat after 4 p.m. because that seems to help with my morning numbers. It seems to keep them down a little bit farther than if I eat after 4 p.m. But I also have a weird work schedule because I get up in the middle of the night, and I'm sure that has an effect because my job starts at 3 a.m. in the morning. And so half the week I kind of stay in bed till 5, and half the week I'm up at 2 a.m. And so I think that messes with my numbers a little bit as well. So I don't really worry about that too much because the rest of the day my numbers are so stable that it doesn't matter.
You suspect you'll do better still, or are you just happy to hold right there?
No, I think it's gone down even lower. I mean, my morning numbers, like I said, I do get a little bit of a spike now. Sometimes it'll be 108, but like during the day, my numbers for the most part are around 100 or lower. So I suspect it'll go down a little bit more.
Do you need more information and inspiration about beating diabetes? The very first line of our description is nearly always a link to our hundreds of videos toward that one subject, how to beat diabetes. Click on that link and start watching these videos. You'll be blessed and, I believe, greatly helped.